Welcome in to Extreme Talk, presented by Complete Wealth Management, Complete Real Estate, your one-stop shop for financial coaching and asset management. Also presented by Goolsby and Young, Jason Goolsby and JD Young of Blackwell Realty, Fairlife Core Power Protein, Brent Atkinson with Wycard Realtors, the Realty Group, and by Sutton Pools. Welcome in to Extreme Talk. It's a little bit of a chilly Sunday. I'm here for it because that means this is some of the best time of the year. Of course, football season's been going on a couple weeks, but it means we got a little bit colder football. Football just means a little bit more, in my opinion, when the temperature starts dropping. You go to the field, you start setting up. It's like mid-70s. By the time the game's over, it's like upper 50s, lower 60s, and it I don't know. There's just something about cold weather in football. Not too cold, just a little chilly. 20, 30-degree games. I mean, they're cool, but can't be too cold. So, I want to give a big shout out right off the top to the folks down at Grace Baptist. Always a blast to go down there. At some point they're going to have to do something because every time we've gone and done one of their games at their place, they're 4-0, and I don't think they've lost. I know they beat Ezel Harding last year, first game in 8-man for Grace. So they might be 5-0, and then I know Florida they lost, so 5-1. So they got a pretty good stretch when they're being broadcast. It's not a bad gig, so might have to see if we can do something about that. But big shout out to all those folks, from the head coach, Coach Babateka, all the way down. Everyone very, very gracious and welcoming. People stopping, saying, "Hey, looking forward to hearing the show. Looking forward to hearing what you guys do. Thanks for what you do." So all of that, it really means a lot, and it's very appreciated. But big shout out to those folks for being very, very hospitable on Friday night. Speaking of Friday night, we are not going to start at Friday night. We're going to start last Tuesday for the second week in a row. We had a Tuesday game, and also, again, big thank you to the folks at Lighthouse Christian. Very, very hospitable as well. So let's start there on last Tuesday. And let me pull it up. Sacred Heart of Jesus High School, they're looking for their first win. Lighthouse Christian looking for their first win. And it was the Knights all over the Lions, 52-14, kind of jumped out to a lead and held on to it. Lighthouse able to put a couple scores on the board. Made it interesting there for about 5 or 6 minutes. And then Sacred Heart able to pull away there at the end and get their first win of the year. Of course, they're off this next upcoming week. And then, big game on the 21st, but we'll talk about that later on. And then skipping to Thursday. Let's see, did we have Thursday games? I feel like we did. Yes. Ezekiel Academy took on Meadowview Christian, ACSC versus AISA matchup. And it was Knights 47. I believe Meadowview is the Spartans, nothing. So big win there for Ezekiel Academy, kind of get back in the win column. And been a tough year for them, but big win there. Let's skip to Friday. So let's run through it. We'll start there in the ACSC, if it'll load up, which I already pulled it up, so I don't know why. There we go. All right, so I mentioned Ezekiel and Meadowview. And then Southern Christian took on Evangel Christian out of Montgomery, Southern Christian Patriots. And it was the Patriots with a big 48-14 win. Very, very young program there, but I believe that is their second win of the season. Yes, 2-3 on the season. So big win for them, coming off a loss to East Central. Freedom Cowboys. Well, Lighthouse Homeschool, coming out of the ACSC, traveled to Huntsville to take on the Freedom Cowboys, and it was Cowboys. It was closer at the very beginning. Cowboys able to pull away, and they got a 58-30 win, so a big win for the Cowboys at home. And then last but not least, East Central took on Tabernacle Christian out of the CFA, and it was Torches 66, Patriots 27. Tabernacle back in the win column after a loss to Russell. East Central looking to pick up a win there, not able to, and they got to reset real quick because they got a big game Friday night. Let's move over to let's go to the TSI AA. We were at a TSI AA game Friday night. Oh, wrong one. There we go. Friday night, and then there was also another big TSI AA game on Friday night as well between South Haven Christian and Christian Community. Of course, everyone that saw the game, Grace Baptist able to hang on, hold off the comeback attempt from Providence Christian. It was a real good game. It was I enjoyed calling that game. Grace did jump out to a 22-0 lead. Providence 13 second quarter points, and then a touchdown for both teams there down the stretch. Grace able to get a couple big stops on some Providence drives, and the Lions hang on, or not the Lions, the Golden Eagles hang on 36-28. And then the other big game happening on Friday night was Christian Community hosting South Haven Christian. Battle of 76, big TSI AA matchup. And Christian Community able to pull out the 36-22 win over the Patriots. So they got the big in-conference, in-county win. And here in a few minutes, I'm going to go over some playoff situations, if you will, and where everybody kind of stands. There's some situations where there's multiple games to happen, and I was not about to sit down and try to figure out what happened with all the different combinations of wins and losses. So if there's multiple, we'll just go over what it looks like right now, and then talk about the games that are coming up and what impact those could have. We'll kind of brush over it. Hopefully next week as well, I'll have a little bit of a visual aid, if you will, on what we're looking at, and that way you guys can follow along a little bit easier. Also going in, that'll be every conference but the TSI AA, that'll be going into the last week of the season, and TSI AA just comes down to this week. So, but we'll go over those here in a little bit. I mentioned Lighthouse Christian took a loss to Sacred Heart. Battle of Franklin Christian, Franklin Classical. Falcons with a big win, 48-6 over the Knights. And that game kind of thrown together, I think, a couple weeks ago after Franklin Christian had to look for an opponent for that night. Franklin Classical was open that night. It all just kind of worked out. So, but a big win for the Falcons nonetheless. They remain unbeaten in conference play, and then they have the one loss to Freedom a couple weeks ago. Let's go to the Heartland Conference. And on, let's make sure there's no Thursday night games. Let's see. I know there's a game coming up this Thursday. And no games this past Thursday. But this past Friday, you did have a couple. Unity Christian got the win over Southwest Christian, 32-30. Unity coming out of Leland, Mississippi. Southwest out of Little Rock, Arkansas, and a big win for the Soldiers in conference play. Also, Destiny Christian all over Trinity Christian, 52-8. Big Oklahoma matchup there. And then on Saturday, Claremore Christian took on Cornerstone Spartans, which the Spartans have struggled a little bit this year. They were another team looking for their first win. And Spartans get it done, 68-60. So congratulations to the Cornerstone Spartans. Couple teams here getting their first wins of the year. Love to see it. Love to see a couple more teams still waiting for that first win, but it'll come. It'll come with time. I promise it'll come. Let's go to the AISA. Got some fun things happening over there. Big matchup this past Friday night between Southern Prep and North River. And the Rangers, it was close early. Rangers able to pull ahead. Fighting Rangers, they fought. 34-12, got a big win over the Chargers. And at the half, it was only 15-6. And then they were able to score in the third, hold the Chargers scoreless. And then fourth quarter, a couple touchdowns, kind of put the game away for the Fighting Rangers. Springwood School hosted Windsor Academy out of Georgia. And Windsor Academy, let me get their mascot name. They are the Knights. And they play in, really should know this ahead of time, they play in the GIAA, which is the athletic spinoff of the GISA. Of course, there's GISA and GAPPS in Georgia. But Windsor Academy gets the 36-12 win over Springwood. Southern Christian, I mentioned they took on Evangel Christian Montgomery and got a 48-14 win. So Lions out of Evangel lose by 34. And then I mentioned Ezekiel Academy and Meadowview Christian Knights getting a 47-0 win over Meadowview. Let's bounce over to the SIFA coming out of South Carolina and Georgia. Let's make sure there's no, I don't think there were any Thursday night games. Still no score reported for Coastal Homeschool. They took on Faith A&M Charter. So still trying to find a score for that one. But the Pack Panthers 58, Harvest Christian nothing. And the Augusta Eagles 34, Orangeburg Christian 14. So Augusta with a big win over Harvest. They lost to Westminster Schools of Augusta and then got a big win over Orangeburg Christian in conference play. And we'll go over where everybody stands right now here in a moment. Let's bounce to the SEEC. Tennessee Heat took on an 11-man opponent, Camden County High School up here in it's Middle Tennessee, but it's like southern Middle Tennessee. And Camden County came into the game at 2-5, and Tennessee Heat actually had the lead there for a while, 19-12, but Camden County able to come back and get the win. I mentioned Sacred Heart over Lighthouse Christian, Freedom Cowboys over Lighthouse Homeschool, and then Classical taking the loss to Franklin Christian. Zion Christian and Tri-Cities Christian were off this week. Let's make sure I didn't miss anybody. Oh, CFA. How could I forget the CFA? So, a game that a lot of people had kind of circled on the calendar was this past Friday night. I know I had. Russell Christian and Jacksonville Christian, both teams unbeaten. Russell coming in at 7-0, Jacksonville coming in at 6-0. I mean, this was a big meeting. And it was tied at 18 at the end of the third. But Russell Christian able to tack a couple touchdowns on the board, get the 2-point conversion attempts, and they held the Thunder scoreless in the second half. They win 34-18. Tuscaloosa Christian in conference play took on Success Unlimited Academy, and it was the Warriors all over the Mustangs, 38-8. Tuscaloosa picks up their final conference win of the year. Cornerstone Christian Rainsville traveled to Mississippi to take on the Eagles of Victory Christian, and the Eagles of Cornerstone Christian got a big 41 nothing win in Mississippi. And then Tabernacle Christian, I mentioned they got the win over East Central Homeschool, 66-12. So a big win there for the Torches. And then let's see if I'm missing anybody else. You had, okay, here it is. So Faith A&M Charter, and the Coastal Hurricanes. It was Faith 76, Coastal Hurricanes 60. So we will really quick. 76-60. Let's go ahead and report that score there. Max Preps. We'll report it here in a little bit. Let's see. Let's bounce back over. Hillcrest Christian got a 32-22 win over Parker's Chapel coming out of the MAIS. KC East 70, Keatsville High School 24. KC East coming off the loss to Bishop LeBlond last week. And so KC East back in the win column. And then let's see what other games. Yesterday, Cornerstone Spartans, I mentioned they got the win. Fort Wayne King Crusaders over Stryker High School 44-20, so they pick up their win after the loss to Holgate High School a couple weeks ago. So, where does that leave us with the national rankings? Well, that's a very good question. Let's find out. Let me pull them up real quick. I'm going to pull up the ones from, pull up the ones from last week and then look at the ones from this week. We'll look at some of the movement that has happened. Let's see. Should be right here. All right, so Evangel Christian Alabaster stays at number 1. They were actually off this week. If I can get my computer to zoom in just a little bit. There you go. That'll work. So, Evangel Christian Alabaster off this week. Russell Christian stays at number 2 at 8-0. So currently number 1 is Evangel, number 2 is Russell. And as far as I can tell, there's no situation in sight in the future where these two play. The regular season, they're not going to match up. Postseason, different conferences, and I don't know. I don't know that Russell goes to Florida. They could have and they should have gone the last few years. They have not gone down, and not sure if they'll go down this year. The talk I'm hearing is that they may not go down, but we'll have to see. We asked Coach Braddock. Anything's possible. So. This week, number 3 is the Freedom Cowboys, and they have moved up from number 5 with the win over Lighthouse Homeschool. Number 4 is Franklin Christian, and they move up from number 7 with a win over Franklin Classical. Jacksonville Christian, with the loss to Russell, they drop from number 4 to number 5. Fort Wayne King Crusaders currently are at number 6, and they move up from number 8. John Paul the Great. No, let's see. Back up. Number 7, KC East out of Kansas City, Missouri. They were previously number 3, and they moved down to number 7. Nope, I'm looking at the wrong rankings. Hold on a second. Looking at the wrong rankings. I need to look at, there we go, October the 2nd. All right, so let's back up 10 yards and repunt that ball, because I was like, there's some of these are off just a little bit. Okay, Evangel, number 1, Russell, number 2, Freedom was number 4, they move up to 3, Franklin Christian was at number 5, they moved to 4. Let's see, number 5 is Jacksonville Christian, they drop from number 3. Number 6 is Fort Wayne King Crusaders. They stay at 6. KC East is at number 7. They stay at number 7. John Paul the Great out of Louisiana, they are at number 8, and they move up from number 10. They are currently 5-0. They were off this past week, but 5-0 record there in the state of Louisiana. Number 9 is Lighthouse Homeschool out of Oneonta, Alabama. They're at number 9, and they drop from number 8 with the loss to Freedom Cowboys. Number 10 is the Manhattan Eagles out of Manhattan, Kansas. They move up from number 11. So not a ton of movement in the top 10 last couple weeks. Teams in the top 10 have kind of stayed there, just kind of shuffled around a little bit based on wins and losses. A lot of these top 10 teams are playing each other. So, if you're a team a little bit further down in the rankings, maybe you've got a decent record, maybe a 4-2 or 5-2, something like that. And you want to know, okay, well, I'm 5-2. Why am I so far? Well, competition has to do with a lot of it. And if you lose to a team that's, pretty close to your ranking, you're going to stay right about there, And if you get a win over a team that doesn't look so great, that's going to play a part in it too. These teams in the top 10, they're all kind of playing each other and battling back and forth. and it affects where they are. So, number 11 this week, Cornerstone Family Saints out of Topeka, Kansas. They move up from number 13, so 13 to 11. Springwood School, they are number 12, and they stay at number 12. They were number 12 last week. Number 13, Tabernacle Christian, they move up from 15. So 15 to 13. Hillcrest Christian is at number 14 at 3-5. And they move up from 16 with the win. Number 15 is the Tennessee Heat. They were previously at number 14. So they moved from 14 to 15. Cornerstone Christian Columbiana, they are at 16, and they last week were at number 17, and I believe they were off this past. No, they got the win over. Hang on, did I forget to mention this game? Hang on. Did I forget to? Okay, yes. Cornerstone Columbiana. I completely missed this score. Cornerstone Columbiana beat Trinity Christian Homeschool 50-22. So they did get a win. And so they move from, where were they at? Number 17 to number 16. Lancaster Christian is at number 17. They move up from 18. Pack Panthers are at 18. They move up from 19. So everybody kind of shifting up one. Christian Community 21-20. Grace Baptist 22-21. Ezekiel Academy from 23. They stay at 23. Providence Christian is at number 22. They were previously at number 9. So they have, with the loss to Grace, they've probably had the most drastic movement that we've seen this season since the rankings started coming out, from number 9 to number 22. And part of that due to the loss to Grace Baptist. And Grace ranked at number 22 last week. So loss to a much lower ranked team dropped them quite a bit. Number 24, Southern Prep Fighting Rangers. They were previously at 27, so they are now in the top 10. Let's see. They had the ranking wrong last night, or the standing wrong 2 and 3. So accounting that win in that they missed, and then adding the win that they got this past Friday night over North River, they moved to 4 and 3. So they are number 24. And then Southwest Louisiana Homeschool is at 25, and they stay at number 25. So there's your top 25 from the NHSA, and a very, very interesting look at how a lot of these teams kind of sort out in terms of comparing them to each other. Couple of other scores I did want to go over. Of course, Carolina Wildcats off this past week, but last night got the chance to watch Tennessee School for the Deaf live. It was the Mississippi School for the Deaf's live feed, and threw me off just a little bit. No sound, which makes a lot of sense in fairness. But Tennessee School for the Deaf down 22-8 at one point in the game, and they come roaring back and got a 60-44 win over the Bulldogs. So Tennessee School for the Deaf finishes the season at 3-3, and I believe that was their last game of the year for the Vikings. I don't think they have any playoff games. So if that's the case, Tennessee School for the Deaf, who did not get a win last season, if I'm not mistaken, so that I know they didn't play football in 2020. They got one win last year over, well, it was a forfeit win over South Carolina School for the Deaf. So on the field wins, they did get another forfeit win this year. So they got 2 on the field wins this year. 2020, they did not play football. In 2019, they got 2 wins over South Carolina. So Mississippi School for the Deaf is the first team that they have beaten on the field other than South Carolina School for the Deaf since, I know, at least 2019. Let's go to 2018. One win in 2018, South Carolina, okay. Let's go to 2017. Let's see. They did not play in 2017. That's right, due to numbers. They did not play in 2017. Let's see. 2016. I believe they had a pretty good team in 2016. Yeah, here you go. Let's see. So, North Carolina School for the Deaf. They beat them 56-6 on September 17th of 2016. So that game last night was the first time they got an on-the-field win other than South Carolina School for the Deaf since September of 2016. So that's huge for the Vikings program and Coach Bill Osborne doing a great job there in Knoxville. Matter of fact, let me look up the series with Mississippi School for the Deaf. They should be right there. So the Vikings had a 1, 2, 3, we'll say 3-game, because the fourth was a forfeit loss. Had a 3-game losing streak to Mississippi and had not played Mississippi since 2019. And Vikings able to get a big win over the Bulldogs. So congrats to Tennessee School for the Deaf. Let's roll through these playoff scenarios real quick. Once I get them pulled up here. And we will start in the SEEC. Like I said, some of these conferences still have teams that have a couple games left to play, a couple conference games. So not everything is either sorted out or there's a clear path on what's going to happen. So going to the SEC, we'll look at the North Division. So most of these conferences are just everybody in the same division, and you play everybody in your conference. SEC split into North and South. So Tennessee Heat currently is 2-0. Franklin Classical is 0-1. Tri-Cities Christian is also 0-1. Those two teams will play each other, not this Friday, but the next Friday on the 21st. And the winner of that game will go to the Freedom Cowboys for the first round of the playoffs. Speaking of the Freedom Cowboys, let's go to the South. Freedom Cowboys are 2-0. Zion Christian's 0-1. Sacred Heart is 0-1. Zion still has to play Sacred Heart, and that game will also take place on the 21st. So, winner of that game will go to the Tennessee Heat. So, on the 21st, a couple games, Classical versus Tri-Cities, Zion versus Sacred Heart. For those games, it's winning you're in. It's very, very simple. Very, very high stakes matchup, but a very simple message to both teams: win and you're in. And if you got to think, like, if you're Classical, you just played Freedom to 22-6. You hung there with them for a little bit, But we'll have to see what happens there. Let's go to the TSI AA. Franklin Christian is 6-0. Providence Christian is 4-2. Grace Baptist is 3-2, and they have a game coming up against Lancaster. Christian Community is 3-3. Lancaster is 2-3, and they have that game coming up against Grace Baptist. South Haven Christian is 2-4, and then Lighthouse Christian is 0-6. So this Friday night, the last week of the regular season for the TSI AA, and it's Grace and Lancaster, and this is a massive high-stakes game for both of these teams. So here's what will happen with that game. If Grace Baptist wins, they will clinch the number 2 seed. They will have the first round bye, and they will play the second round at home. Providence will host Lancaster Christian because, again, TSI AA with 7 teams, they just did away with divisions, and they're doing just a set, everybody in the conference plays everybody. So Providence Christian will host Lancaster Christian, and Christian Community will host South Haven. That's if Grace wins. In that situation, Grace would move to 4-2 head-to-head. They have the win over Providence. And then at that point, Providence is 4-2, so they are the 3 seed. Christian Community would be 3-3. Lancaster would be 3-3. And then you have South Haven at 2-4. Lancaster beat CCS. So CCS and Providence would host the first round, and South Haven and Lancaster would be on the road. If Lancaster wins the game this Friday night, then Providence will clinch the number 2 seed. So if you're the Lions, you're a big, big Knights fan this Friday night. Matter of fact, you might be going to watch the game because it's a big, big matchup. So, and Providence got a win over Lancaster early on this season. So, if Lancaster wins, Providence has the number 2 seed. Lancaster will host South Haven Christian, and Christian Community will host Grace Baptist. And of course, that happening because Grace, Christian Community, and Lancaster would all be 3-3. Lancaster would get the number 3 seed, which would mean they would host the number 6, which would be South Haven at 2-4, and then Christian Community got the win over Grace earlier this season, and so they would host Grace with them both tied at 3-3. Let's go to the ACSC. So Evangel Christian currently right now sits at 3-0, and they have a game against Southern Christian Patriots. It'll be this Friday night, actually, I believe. Lighthouse Homeschool is 2-1. They have a game against East Central coming up on this Friday night. East Central's also 2-1. They have the game against Lighthouse Homeschool. Southern Christian is 0-2, and they still have Evangel and Ezekiel to play. And then Ezekiel's 0-3, and they still have Southern Christian Patriots to play. So really, Evangel has Southern Christian, and this is not a knock on Southern Christian at all, but, I've always said I'm not going to charge for bulletin board material. So let's say Evangel, in all likelihood, beats Southern Christian. Evangel's going to have the number 1 seed. They're going to host in the first round of the playoffs, and if they're in the championship game, they will host the championship game as well. Southern Christian has the loss. They move to 0-3. And then at that point, their game against Ezekiel becomes a game for the 4 seed, both at 0-3. So, and no matter who wins that game, you're going on the road to Ezekiel. Because here's the thing. Lighthouse Homeschool and East Central coming up this Friday night. If Lighthouse wins, they go to 3-1. East Central goes to 2-2. And then you just got to turn around. East Central's got to go back on the road. East Central will have to host. East Central will go on the road because they're hosting Lighthouse Homeschool this Friday night. So they will have to turn around and go back on the road, which, honestly, there's like 30 minutes between these two schools. There's a lot of crossover. So East Central will go on the road to play Lighthouse Homeschool, and that's if Lighthouse Homeschool wins the game Friday night. If East Central wins the game, they move to 3-1, and they will host. And again, this is with Evangel beating Southern Christian. So East Central, with a win over Lighthouse Homeschool, they move to 3-1. Lighthouse is 2-2. Lighthouse goes on the road to East Central. Let's say the improbable happens and Southern Christian beats Evangel. Excuse me. I need a drink of Milo's. Oh, man. Milo's always hits the spot. All right. So let's say Evangel loses to Southern Christian. Evangel goes to 3-1. And Lighthouse Homeschool, let's say they beat East Central, they go to 3-1. So really, but let's say Lighthouse Homeschool or East Central go to 3-1, which Evangel's already beat both of them, so head to head they win. So Evangel, regardless, has home field advantage through the playoffs. They will win the regular season portion of the conference play. So really, Lighthouse Homeschool, East Central, that game, barring Southern Christian beating both Evangel and Ezekiel, which if that happens, well, no, both of them already beat Southern Christian. So Southern Christian and Ezekiel, let's boil this back down. Let's simplify it back down, okay? Evangel has the 1 seed. Lighthouse Homeschool, East Central. They're playing their game to see where the second round of the playoffs is going to be because they're going to end up playing each other. And then Southern Christian. No, let's back up. So Southern Christian beats Evangel and Ezekiel. So they go to 2-2. I'll say East Central's 2-2. Okay, but East Central, okay. Yeah. So I got it right. So Lighthouse Homeschool, East Central, that game is determined where the second round of the playoff game is going. The first round playoff game is going to be, whether it's at Lighthouse Homeschool or East Central. Evangel has home field advantage, and then Southern Christian and Ezekiel, not this week but next week on the 21st. That game is to see who has to go to Evangel, who gets to go to Evangel for the first round of the playoffs. So take that. AISA, let's go over there. Evangel Christian Montgomery has 3 conference games left to play. They're at 1-1. Springwood School is 3-1. They have North River left. Southern Prep is also 3-1. They have Evangel left. North River's 2-1. They have Evangel left coming up this Friday night. And then Springwood School, I believe that game is next Friday, or it might be the 28th. But they have those 2 conference games coming up. Evangel Christian on Montgomery has North River, Cornerstone Christian, and Southern Prep all left. Cornerstone Christian is 1-2. They have Meadowview and Evangel left. Meadowview is 0-4, and they have Cornerstone Christian left to play. So, if Springwood wins out, they are 4-1. If Springwood and Southern Prep both win their games against North River and Evangel, respectively, Springwood will have the number 1 seed, which in that conference they're just taking the top 4. So Springwood will have the number 1 seed. Southern Prep will host the number 3 seed, which there's a whole lot to get sorted out with Evangel still having 3 games left to play. So that's where AISA is right now. I know it's kind of clear as mud, but there you go. And unfortunately, I do not have the SIFA and the Heartland Conference situations typed up. I will get those typed up, figured out, and we'll have that for the show next week. Just ran out of time today to get that sorted out. So, gonna step aside for just a moment and get, let's see. Well, no, we'll go ahead and get ready to bring him on. Our guest for today is the head coach of Tuscaloosa Christian. Let me go ahead and get him queued up here. There we go. Joining me now is the head coach of the Tuscaloosa Christian School Warriors. It's Coach David Arsenault. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join me.
Yeah, can you hear me fine?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. I'm out here working on the shop, so.
There you go. There you go. Hey, Coach, for those that aren't familiar with yourself and your program and the Warriors, let's get everybody acquainted with your program.
Okay, I believe we've been playing football since 1974.
Oh, wow.
We switched to 8-man, I believe, in 1995 or 96. It was 95 or 96. I played 8-man football for, I guess, from 7th grade till I graduated at Tuscaloosa Christian.
Okay, there you go.
That would have been 98 through 2003, and then I have been a coach there for 13 years, head coach for 10. This is my 10th year as a head coach.
Oh, wow. So a lot of longevity there with the school, and a lot of familiarity in terms of being an alumni coach. You would think you hear about it more, but you really don't hear about alumni coaches very often.
No, not really. I think there's a steady stream of them at our school. I was coached by an alumni, and the guy that took after him was actually our defensive coordinator, was an alumni. And then I've been there since then. So it's been a pretty steady string since, I think, Well, since the '80s, really, I think.
Well, and I think that's the best part of that is the fact that um, you really keep you keep a very what's the word I'm looking for? There's not a lot of turnover in terms
Right.
of bringing in new people. It's people that you know the parents already know, the administrators already know, the players to some extent already know, and it just keeps that sense of continuity around the
Yeah.
program.
Yeah. There is a real continuity. There are definitely traditions that I don't know if they went back before I played, but there are definitely things that were traditions that when I played that still carry on to this day. There is a bit of continuity that kind of keeps people connected to the history and just the traditions and of the entire program.
So as you look through the season, Coach, obviously a couple of close games that if you could take back, I'm sure you would. You won a couple of those close games, lost a couple of close games. The ones that come to mind: Russell Christian and Jacksonville. You know, two teams that one game a 14-point loss, one game a 6-point loss. Um, and it seems like you guys are kind of in a wait and see situation, especially with Cornerstone and Tabernacle coming up. Those two still have to play, and it really sorts out the scene in your conference in terms of playoffs. But with a situation like that, and I know you guys handle business Friday night. You know, all you can control is you. And you guys
Hmm.
handle business Friday night. But what are you telling your guys going forward in terms of, hey, listen, um, we need to prepare like we're going to be in the playoffs because I'm pretty sure every scenario says you guys are going to be in. Now, whether you're on the road, it's another story. But what are you telling your guys in terms of the postseason?
Well, pretty much the vast majority of the situations, like if you're a betting man, would have us playing. It's either we are in the playoffs or and playing Russell or out of the playoffs. Pretty much, there is one kind of freakish possibility where we ended up in third place playing Jacksonville, but I really don't see that happening. So for us, it's at this point just get ready for Russell. We're gonna continue as if we're planning to play Russell, and if it doesn't work out, it's like you have to live with the seeds that you sowed earlier in the season. So hopefully it works out for us, and you hate to leave your destiny up to somebody else, but we're just gonna go for it as if we're playing Russell first week of playoffs.
Well, and that that game happening early on in the season, it seems like not just you guys, but Russell also has really changed as a team, and so it's almost like two not new teams, but two more developed teams would be facing off in that situation, and I don't know personally. I really don't know who it favors.
Well, the tricky thing, well, the thing with Russell is they have a great program and a great culture, and they have played several close games this year. I think with Tabernacle and Jacksonville, where they've surged late in the game. They're very good at surging late in the game.
Right.
They have that confidence there, and so that's one thing is they have the experience of winning the big games where our guys don't have that experience. One thing that goes in our favor a little bit is that when we played them, we did not have our biggest offensive weapon at the time, number two, Luke Jones. He was unable to play.
Right.
And then we had a couple other things going on in our team that just really knocked us down. I think the boys will have plenty of confidence playing against this team, but I mean, anytime you play Russell, their program is just it's so stellar that it's always going to be a game.
Now, speaking of your guys, I want to give you an opportunity to. You mentioned Luke, but I want to give you an opportunity to maybe hype up or promote a couple of the guys on your team that over throughout the season have, stepped up, taken it to the next level, or maybe it was guys you expected that hey they're going to lead this year and they did so.
Well, we had kind of our core linebacking crew came back, and they've all been extremely good this year. That'd be Sean McMullen, Jonah Boozer, and Jack Arsenal. They've all been very, very good this year, and they've had a lot of experience at that position and the way we play it and the way we coach it. So they've done really well. Jaden Yeager is just a beast up front when it comes to stopping the run. And but there's been a few standouts as well. Sam's been new to the team. He's really helped us out. Sam McMurray.
Yeah.
Um, and then a particular standout. I don't know how many interceptions he has this year. 10th grader Jackson Harris, I think, is close to 10 interceptions for the year. So
Oh
he's
wow.
he's he's had a heck of a year. He's really stepped up for us. that's on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, I would definitely say Jack Arsenal he was not really running the ball for us last year, and he's really stepped up big to run the ball for us this year. Sean hasn't played, or not Sean, but Sam McMurray has not been playing the last couple of years. Came out there, which was great because not having Luke at the first of the year, Sam stepped right in at the quarterback position and performed really well. And then Jackson's been an explosive player on offense for us.
Uh, Early on in the season, you guys are able to get a couple shutout wins over Meadowview and Cornerstone, and then last couple weeks, bouncing back from the losses to Jacksonville Tabernacle, you guys win big against Victory. You win big against Success. When you guys lose the big game, you lose big to teams like Jackson.
Yeah.
You close loss to Jacksonville, you lost big to Tabernacle. And then compared to when you guys get those big wins, like the big shutout wins and the wins you guys got in the last couple of weeks, what do you tell your guys after those games? What's the kind of the contrast and the message you're sending to them about whether or not how to move on from those?
Well, I mean, it kind of depends. I mean, generally you're gonna have a feeling after a game. Sometimes the feeling's not. You have to, I guess, prove that feeling is accurate with film. But you'll generally, if you've been doing this long enough, have a feeling of what was the issue within the game. And so with Jacksonville especially, it was just total mental errors. They gave us every opportunity in the first half to kind of seal up that game because we were able to run the ball really well in that game.
Right.
And if we had just not made the mental mistakes we had made in that first half, then I think we win the game. I wouldn't say easily because I don't want to disrespect Jacksonville and the incredible performance they had, but
For sure, yeah.
we definitely could have won that game had we not made the mental errors we had. So at that point, it's, hey guys, clearly we know we've kind of faced everyone in the league at this point. We know we can beat everybody. We can't ask ourselves to beat them and overcome our own mistakes.
Right.
Tabernacle was a weird situation. It was we had two starters that were very questionable for that game. They ended up playing a little bit, but there were two key starters, and it really set us back. We tried some new things on defense to kind of make up for not having them, and they were also key players on offense. So that was just a weird game.
Right. I remember seeing that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and so at the end of that game, you don't want to beat them up too bad, but more is just a challenge of like, hey, we still got every chance to make this season successful. Let's not don't let this game affect how you play the rest of the season. So
Yeah,
it
for
just
sure.
kind of depends. And then after any win, because yes, kind of differences after the wins. I don't ever want to take away from the celebration of the win. I want them to enjoy those, but it's still, you're going to have a feeling after the game of this is where we can improve. Let's use the momentum it's always about, let's keep working to improve. So whether it's a loss or a win, there's always a feeling of this is what we can do better to either build on this momentum or perhaps reverse the momentum.
Now, what do you guys do in terms of keeping roster numbers? Obviously, every year you're graduating some seniors. You got to keep replacing them with young guys. Do you guys have a middle school or JV program, or how do you guys kind of keep the roster replenished?
Yeah, we have a junior high program, 7th to 9th grade. Some of those do play up to varsity. Some of the 9th graders, some of the 8th graders too. Well, I mean, I've had a bit of a philosophy change on that over the last few years. Because football was so popular, it was more about I want the 20 toughest guys I can get.
Right.
And that's just changed for me over the years. Now it's more about I want to invest as much in the program as I can, and that's money, time, resources, whatever it is, so that more kids are encouraged to come try it out and be part of it. And I just want to create as good of an experience for each player as I can, whether that's junior high or varsity, so that once they get in the program, there's something they want to be a part of. So junior high is a big part of that. It's like, let's kind of give them a taste of what the varsity experience is so that they're itching to get up there to varsity.
Obviously, ACSC has Evangel and Lighthouse Homeschool, which is beating some teams from your conference, and there's some good teams around. In terms of the quality, because you guys have had at least Russell and Jacksonville, and then Tabernacle was up there for a while. You guys were up there for a while. Cornerstone's had a great season. Would you say, all in all, in terms of overall strength, you guys are in the toughest conference?
I don't know. I haven't played outside of the conference enough to know that.
Gotcha.
We in the past we've played some teams from Georgia and played some teams from Tennessee. I it's and this is complete feel. It seems like most leagues are about the same. You'll have a couple, two or three teams that are very strong, and it just kind of depends on the year. It's like this kind of comes in waves. So right now, it feels like a couple of schools have really strong talent, and a couple of schools are down. But like a uh, victory of Columbus.
Right.
If you go back 3 or 4 years, they had some really really great talent, and their talent level isn't quite what it was, but it just kind of goes in waves. We experienced the same thing. It was my first 4 years as a head coach. We went to the championship every year, and then the next 4 years we didn't even have a winning season. So
Oh,
it's just
wow.
it's just so it's the who comes out to play. It's the group of boys that you get. Um, so I don't know. It's hard for me to say which conference is the strongest. I do know some of those homeschool teams like Lighthouse or Ezekiel. They tend to be really strong year over year.
Right.
Um, and I don't know and I'm not saying anything negative about this at all. I don't know the process for getting players for homeschool.
Right.
I don't know how you go about doing that, but they do like it or love it. They do seem to stay strong year over year. All three of those programs do.
For sure. Yeah. Obviously, the championship game, everybody, in terms of the conference, everybody kind of wants it neutral site. And it's been at you guys' place. It was there last year when we got the chance to do your championship game with Russell and Evangel. If you guys get in the first round, let's say you get the win, whether it's a upset, whether it's just hey, we should win this game and you win it. Let's say you guys get to the championship, getting to play the championship at your home field. How much of an edge do you think that gives you guys, or does it give you guys one at all?
I think it just keeps things. I don't know. I don't know how much of a believer I've ever been in the whole home field advantage thing. I if if I had to choose between the two, obviously I'd rather play at home. It
I was,
keeps
I was about
everything
to say, would
simple.
you rather go on the road?
No, I'd rather be at home. I'd rather be at home, but it's more of logistical. It's
Right.
more the logistics of, you're eating like you normally eat. You have your locker room like you normally have it. Your warm up. The field's the way it needs to be. All that sort of thing. We've showed up this year to a few games, and all of a sudden the field's an 11-man field, and it's like, I mean, well, we have to scrap half of what we had planned because it's an 11-man field. It's like,
Right. Right.
you know, now, actually, I shouldn't say that did not happen this year. That's happened in the past for me. This year, we knew about every field we were going to, whether it was 11 or 8. I've learned that lesson in the past. But uh,
It
so
does affect a few things.
yeah, I mean, 8-man football is when they made that change. I don't know how long ago they made that change, but it was huge for the game. It 100% needs to be the standard regulation. I mean, that's why it's in the Alabama high school rule book.
Right.
Because it makes the game so much better for 8-man football.
Well, and are you one of the guys that has the opinion where obviously the width is a huge difference? What are your feelings on the length, the 80 versus 100?
Length is well, so the whole thing with 8-man is you have less men, so it makes it harder on defense.
Right.
So I
Right.
think you want to make it. I think everything you should do should be support the defense at this point until it evens out. So I wouldn't think shortening it makes any sense to me. I would, I would lengthen it, but I think 100 yards is just fine. I think 100 yards is where it should be, but definitely don't shorten it because you're already 8 men on defense is still there's still plenty of room out there even with a 40-yard wide field.
For sure. For sure. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to join me. One more question. Obviously, with the season winding down and still some games left, very obviously, but if you're looking forward to scheduling and you're looking at opponents, is there somebody that you kind of see or you've seen this year, or maybe there's just a history and you say, you know what, I really want to take a crack at this team. I really want to play this team. Is there anybody that comes to mind?
There is a team, and it's not necessarily just because of the not they have a great program and we've played them in the past. But I have no idea how great they are at the moment, but we've just played them several times in the past, and I kind of want to start a new tradition for our team to for the first game of the year
Right.
to just travel somewhere far away. So we take like a 2-day trip kind of thing, and just kind of part of the team building process. And South Haven out of Tennessee,
There you go.
we've played with them in the past, and I think our assistant coach spoke to them. So I would love to play those guys again next year. But that's not because they're just a good program, and we've always had a good experience playing against them in the past. So as far as just like, man, I'd love to get a crack at them. Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to know. We've played some Georgia teams in the past, and
Right.
uh, we've played several teams out of Tennessee. Even back when I played, we played some teams out of Tennessee. But generally, there's plenty of competitiveness within our own conference.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's what I was referencing earlier. It's like,
yeah,
you have a very competitive conference. It's not like,
right,
in terms of having a measuring stick, you've got to go out of conference.
right. Very true.
I almost thought you were going to mention. Almost thought you were going to say North River, couple 10 minutes up the road.
Yeah, I spoke to their coach. I mean, it's definitely a possibility that we could, because I played against them growing up,
Yeah, yeah.
and we've used to play a lot. I'm sure we'll end up playing each other, even if it was just some preseason scrimmaging type stuff. I think that those two programs will definitely be playing each other.
I think that'd be awesome. I think it'd be awesome. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join me. I had a lot of fun, and looking forward to seeing what you guys do with the rest of the season, and they're in the playoffs.
All right, I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Coach. It's Coach Joe, Coach Jack. I don't know why I just said Jack. David Arsenal. I don't know why I forgot that too. Okay. So fun fact. That is actually like my Clark Kent job. That's actually the name of my boss. Is David Arsenal. So it's funny. First time I got to talk to Coach Arsenal in person, I walked up and introduced myself, and you could tell not many people get that name right the first crack. It's not a hard name, but not many people get that name right the first crack. So just kind of a fun fact there. All right, let's go through the games coming up this Friday night. And speaking of the CFA, we're going to start there. And I mentioned a couple games that still have to take place. I'm not sure. Let me look, because I'm not 100% sure that I brought up the playoff situation for the CFA, and I don't believe I did. So that's my bad. Real quick, also want to take a quick second to say thank you to our sponsors this season. Of course, this is Extreme Talk presented by Complete Wealth Management, Complete Real Estate. They're obviously, I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Just like, you should run Derrick Henry on first and goal or in the goal line situation. It's a no-brainer. Complete Wealth Management, Complete Real Estate. They're your one-stop shop for financial coaching and asset management. And of course, I also want to give a thank you to Jason Goolsby and J.D. Young of Blackwell Realty, Fairlife Core Power Protein, Brent Atkinson with Wycard Realtors, the Realty Group, and Sutton Pools. I want to give a big thank you to them for making all the travel possible this season. Still have a little bit of travel to go, so we'll have some games coming up. In the CFA, Russell Christian is 5-0 in conference play. They still have a game against Success Unlimited. Jacksonville Christian is 4-1. They have a game against Victory Christian. Tabernacle Christian is 3-2, and they have a game coming up against Cornerstone Christian Rainsville. Tuscaloosa Christian, just talked to Coach Arsenal. They are 3-3 in conference play, so they are done with conference play. They're the only team with no games left. They're 3-3, so they're kind of in a waiting situation here. Cornerstone Christian Rainsville, they're 2-3. They have that game against Tabernacle coming up. Success Unlimited is 0-4. They still have games against Riverside Christian and Victory Christian coming up. And then I mentioned Victory Christian 0-4. They've got the game against Jacksonville Christian and Success Unlimited coming up. Now in that conference, 7 teams, top 4 make the playoffs. So with Tabernacle and Cornerstone playing, I think it's next week, or it's this week. Let's see. Let me verify this. Let's see. So they play. I think it is next week. Let me double check. Let me go to the full calendar. Yes, next week is Tabernacle and Cornerstone Christian. So that game is really the one that sets up how the playoffs are going to be, because if Tabernacle wins, they move to 4-2. Now, situation, Jacksonville Christian has the game against Victory. Now, Victory is 0-4 in conference, and they might have won one game overall. Let me double check. Let's see. Victory is 0-5. So, let's say, for the sake of argument, success is 1-5 with a win over Trinity Christian Homeschool. So, let's say Jacksonville Christian gets the win over Victory Christian, and Russell beats Success, which both of those teams winless in conference play. So Russell will go to 6-0, Jacksonville at 5-1. So they will both host playoff games. And then for the 3 and 4 seed, if Tabernacle beats Cornerstone Christian Rainsville, then Tuscaloosa will be on the road at Russell, and Tabernacle will be on the road at Jacksonville. If Cornerstone Christian Rainsville wins that game, they move to 3-3. Tabernacle will be 3-3. Tuscaloosa will be 3-3. And Tuscaloosa will still keep that number 4 seed. Tabernacle will still have the 3 seed, and Cornerstone will have the 3 seed. I'm sorry, Tuscaloosa's out. So Cornerstone wins that game against Tabernacle. They go to 3-3. Tabernacle goes to 3-3. Tuscaloosa 3-3. Cornerstone will be beating Tabernacle. Tabernacle beat Tuscaloosa, and Tuscaloosa beat Cornerstone, so it would be a 3-way tie. And I'm not sure. I need to look into the tiebreaker. Okay, so next week on the show, I will have an answer on a 3-way tiebreaker for the CFA. So a little tease there. I'll find out throughout the week what the tiebreaker situation is. So the game's happening this Friday night in the CFA. Go to the they have a game on the 13th, and it is Russell Christian hosting Success Unlimited Academy on Friday night. Tuscaloosa Christian is at Trinity Christian Homeschool, and Jacksonville Christian is taking on Victory Christian. Let's go to the AISA coming up on Friday night. You have a couple games, 4. Ezekiel Academy is at Southern Prep. Ezekiel coming in at 3-5. Southern Prep at 4-3. Evangel Montgomery is at North River Christian. Evangel Montgomery coming in at 1-5. North River at 3-5 overall. And that is the game that will be at Friday night. Evangel Christian Montgomery, the Lions, taking on the North River Christian Chargers. Also on Friday night, Cornerstone Christian and Meadowview Christian. Cornerstone coming in at 4-2, Meadowview at 0-8. Springwood is at New Creation Christian out of Georgia. Springwood at 4-3, New Creation at 2-5. Let's go to the TSI AA. 2 games happening this week on Thursday. Franklin Christian's at Zion Christian. And then you also have the big game, Grace Baptist and Lancaster Christian. That game is what will determine things happening in the playoffs, what really happens in the playoffs. SEEC mentioned Zion and Franklin Christian. Freedom Cowboys host the Carolina Wildcats, and everybody else is off on Friday night. ACSC, Lighthouse Homeschool at East Central, Southern Christian at Evangel Christian, Alabaster, and then I mentioned Ezekiel and Southern Prep. Let's see. Let's go to South Carolina. Harvest Christian at Orangeburg Christian Friday night. And Pack Panthers taking on the Coastal Hurricanes. I always say Coastal Carolina. Coastal Hurricanes. Their only loss is to Pack. Pack has a loss, but it's to a SCISA team. And real quick, let's bounce out to the Heartland Conference. Coming up on Thursday night, crossover prep at Cross Christian. Cross Prep at 2-1. Cross Christian at 1-2. That's not right, but we'll have to check Max Preps. And then Southwest Christian is at Destiny Christian, and those games happening on Thursday night. On Friday night, West Memphis Christian at 3-4 is at Abundant Life, who leads the Heartland Conference and is in first place there. So, those are your games coming up on Friday night. Not a full slate. A lot of teams on spring break this week and getting ready for the playoffs. Over the next couple weeks, first rounds of the playoffs will be starting. Such a wonderful time of year. Such a great time of year. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. That'll do it for Extreme Talk presented by Complete Wealth Management, Complete Real Estate, your one-stop shop for financial coaching and asset management. I'm James Shannon. Thank you for listening to Extreme Talk. Friday night, Evangel Christian Montgomery is at North River Christian. We will be there. We'll see you then. See ya!